From the deepest reaches of the interwebs are two guys here to reveal the secret sauce in helping you develop multiple streams of internet cash flow. Share the knowledge without all the hype. It's the Internet Income Show.
Oh, I like that.
Now get ready for two regular dudes helping you become a smarter entrepreneur, get more out of life, and set you on the right path to becoming happily unemployable. Your host, Dr. Mike and Eric Louviere.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another episode of the Internet Income Show. This is Dr. Mike Wu-Ming. And if you were the one who sold your virtual reality company to Facebook for $2 billion, you had a really great week. Also having a great week is my good friend, and we got a special guest. It's Eric Louviere. Eric, how you doing?
A special guest. I'm doing great. Dr. Mike, had a baby. Things have been a little busy, doing a launch, starting a whole new business. So, yeah, things are great. Rocking and rolling, making money, having fun, doing the family guy thing. Trying to lose weight.
Awesome. Losing weight. All right. Well, you come to my clinic. Hey, and you just got back. You just got back from the Warrior event, where I heard you got a standing ovation. Tell me about that. What was the Warrior event? Where was it at? And what did you learn from there?
Okay, yeah, I was in Raleigh, North Carolina, which I've never been to that city in my entire life till now. And I didn't get a standing ovation. I got like half standing ovation. Like or a quarter standing ovation. There's like a group in the back, and they stood up and they really loved it, so I just considered it a full standing ovation since some people stood up to clap. So that was pretty good. Yeah, what did I learn from the Warrior Seminar? Well, I learned that a lot of people have crashed and burned in business. Some of the older guys that have been around a while, they've had their ups and their downs. They, made millions of dollars and all of a sudden lost it all. That was a common theme amongst several people, is that they were on top of the world and then they lost it all. I mean, everything. And they had to dust themselves off and get back on the horse again and go try to build up again, and then they did it again. So that was really interesting to me. When I was speaking, I said, it's pretty fascinating to see that other people are talking openly about how they, lost it all with the economy crash and the changes of the market and the regulations that took place in different online business and IRS problems and all that. It was really interesting to hear all that and then be open about that. And I said, you guys should all relax, because I think I'm on my fifth or sixth time I've lost it all. That's just part of business. Sometimes you're going to lose it all if you're taking some crazy risks. But they're really good lessons, too, because they helped me manage my money better, helped me, not count my chickens before they hatch, helps me diversify a little bit. But when people are coming from nothing, or they're coming from a day job, and then all of a sudden they start making a whole lot of money, there's some things to learn about that money, too. And, there's younger guys that were at the Warrior event who are just now starting to make good money. And it's interesting to look at them, too, and think to yourself, they still have some lessons to learn as far as those forks in the road that you come to when you're making a lot of money. So that was kind of a common theme to me. But I also said that I remember watching a video with Jay Abraham and I forget the other guy's name, but he's a big marketer, has been around for a long time, more of a direct response marketer. And he said, a lot of these internet marketers are starting to make big money, millions of dollars. And he said, well, they're in for a rude awakening because they haven't lost it all yet. They don't know what that's like. And then Jay Abraham said, I've lost it all 3 or 4 times. So I think that's a really interesting point because, you can look at someone, who's a billionaire like Donald Trump, and he filed bankruptcy at one point and was able to, become a billionaire. And so you see that with businesses a lot is they kind of, will explode and generate a lot of revenue, and then they can run into some snafus along the way too. But that's fine. I think it's interesting to, people who are ambitious to succeed to understand that, because it helps you take risks when you know that, it's okay if your business kind of, fails. It's okay. We've all failed, and you learn how to do it again better the next time around, more intelligently and more maybe conservatively to build something that makes you more happy. And another common thing that I heard, and I can relate to too, is, there's a point of burnout where people can get really burned out and almost miserable, or maybe they're even miserable in their current lives and businesses because they're on this hamster wheel and they are experiencing failure. And that's when I think it's important to kind of understand that the greatest quote I've ever heard is, crisis is change trying to take place. So I'll say it again. Crisis is change trying to take place. So if you're experiencing a crisis moment or a problem, a big-time tragedy problem in your business, then just understand that there's some kind of big change that needs to happen either within your business or within yourself as a business owner in order to move that business into a new territory, because we're kind of all focused to grow, or forced to grow, I should say. And if we don't grow and we just kind of sit on the train tracks, you're going to get run over. So it's almost like if you're not trying to win, if you're not playing to win, you're playing to not lose, and a lot of times you're going to lose if you play the game like that. So you got to play to win, you got to play to grow, and you got to be willing to change. And Brian Tracy says, you're either coming out of a crisis, or you're about to come into a crisis, or you're currently experiencing a crisis. But that's how it is in business. So in business, you're either currently experiencing some kind of crazy crisis. Basically, like marketers and business owners of all kinds, any kind of small business owner, oftentimes are going to experience crisis moments in their business. It's just a given. It's a prerequisite to doing business and taking your business to the next level. And so it's also the great separator that puts people out of business and then gets them to go back and get day jobs and stuff and just give up on their dreams of being entrepreneurs. And it's this great, reckoning or separator type of thing. And so Brian Tracy says, you're either currently in a crisis, and so you're experiencing a crisis right now, or you're just coming out of a crisis, so you just experienced a crisis and now you're out of it, or you're about to come into a crisis soon. So there's always a crisis situation in business, and the best quote I've ever heard is, crisis, if you're experiencing a crisis is change trying to take place. So anytime I've ever experienced a crisis in business, man, I have to really do some soul searching and look in the mirror to figure out what exactly is it that is causing all these problems. And over the years, I've had some offline businesses too. I started figuring out that, maybe we need to focus on sales more, and that's the problem, which is often the number one problem is cash flow. And, we have way too many employees who are just milking paychecks and not really contributing to generating more revenue. For example, at one time I had a staff of over 30 people. Well, most of that staff were in production. So they were just doing, fulfillment type stuff, customer service and graphic art and web design and programming and, all that stuff, bookkeeping. Well, none of that generates revenue per se. It's all fulfillment or production. And so I'm like, well, I only have a couple of people who focus on sales, and that was me and a partner. And I'm like, and I was the one that was majority focused on bringing in new revenue. So here we had 30-something people, but Eric Louvier was the only one focused on sales. Well, you do that too long, then you're going to burn yourself out. So there's lots of things you learn along the way as a business owner. And if you're experiencing crisis, you kind of look at that and you're like, well, what's missing here? What's the problem? Why are we suffering? And then you figure out what the problem is, and then you fix it, and now you're out of the crisis situation. But so many business owners, especially marketers, they get to a level where they're making really good money, and then they start going downhill. They start losing money, and then things get kind of tough, and they start firing people and getting rid of their offices and all that. And really what happens for so many people is they stop doing all the things that got them there in the first place. So they reach that $1 million income, as a business owner, like gross revenue is $1 million, and then it goes to 600,000, then 500, then 300, and it's like, what's the problem? Well, you're not doing any of the things that got you that $1 million business. Stop recruiting affiliates, stop paying for traffic, stop making offers, stop managing the list, stop striking deals, stop building relationships, stop going to events, stop speaking. And the next thing you know, you have $150,000 a year business, and wondering where it all went. Well, it all went to that. They stopped doing what got you there in the first place, or hiring people to do these things. Well, they don't quite do it with a lot of conviction, so they just kind of show up and milk a paycheck. In America, especially, In America, it's like so great. You're just like, oh, you don't like what I'm doing? Well, I'll just go get another job, right? And then you're like, dang it, you got to start over as a business owner. So employees are kind of pampered in this world or in this country. So from an employer point of view, you have to manage them properly, and that's something I was never very good at. I'd read books on compliment, reprimand, compliment, and build them up, and their tank is full, and then they do better, and all these different things. And for me, I was just always someone who's like, I just can't manage them. I mean, they either, I'd have employees that would go months without doing anything because I didn't give them anything to do, but I was too nice to fire them. So there's all these things that you learn along the way in business. And when I was at the event, and I saw some, some big marketers and, some big attendees that generate a lot of revenue talk about, losing it all, and I've lost it all a lot of times, so I'm not pointing my finger at anybody. I've certainly, made my share of mistakes. And, I think the point is to understand that it's not what's important that happens. I mean, it is, but what's more important is how you react to what happens and what you're going to do about it next. So if some catastrophe happens in your business, okay, welcome to the world of business. What's the next step? What are you going to do about it? Because what you do about it is going to dictate everything. Well, unfortunately, most people run. So if there's some big challenge, crisis, catastrophe, tragedy that happens in the business, a lot of people, run for the hills and say, I give up. Well, then that's why 80% of businesses fail the first couple of years, because that first big sign of adversity that shows up, it's stressful. I remember learning, in early 90s when I was in college, I got Tony Robbins tapes, and he was just now becoming big. And one of the things he taught, and I had it in my notes, was if you want to be rich, you have to learn how to handle financial pressures. And I just remembered that for my entire life, and it came in handy at times of great financial pressures. I'm like, well, this is what I signed up to do. So if I want to be really successful and have all this abundance in my life, then I have to be able to handle financial pressures. And boy, am I glad I learned that little lesson, because it paid huge dividends. So that's one of the big things that stood out to me at the Warrior event. And the other thing that stood out to me is that I just get nervous when I talk on stage for some reason. So I learned how to manage that instead of fight it. So there's fight or flight. And so I guess before I would fight it and be like, why the hell am I getting nervous? Why does this happen to me? And then this time I'm like, you know what? I get nervous. Screw it. Who cares? I'm going to have fun and just try to manage it. And because of that little thing I kept telling myself, just manage it. I had a blast talking, and it came out really well, and I had a really good ovation, so it was fun. So it's interesting if you look at things from just a little bit slightly different angle, how big of a difference that can make.
I think those are some really good points that you made. Interestingly, I had a dinner with some friends in internet marketing a few days ago, and very similar to what you talked about. Marketers who made 20, 30, 50. One was making $70,000 a month in her business, and it's been reduced. And I think you got to learn from lessons, and you got to anticipate what's going on. So, how do they get into the situation? And I think the main thing, there's a few different factors that I see. I think one, most people who go in, and again, I don't want to make any stereotypes, a lot of people who go into the internet marketing or internet businesses generally, shouldn't be going into that business, or they're not equipped to be dealing with. They've never developed a business before, and like you said, you have to have the skills, what you learn and what you go into to identify that. Because an internet business, there's a lot of things in an internet business that you wouldn't get away with in a regular business. I mean, there are times in the internet business, like, if I don't want to go to work on Monday, I don't have to go to work. And then you don't work for the whole week. So there's no one really to kind of discipline you. You probably don't have a lot of employees that you have to pay. And I think one good way that you can keep yourself active in your business is to have employees. And to, have payroll that you have to pay for, because that'll keep you on your toes. You won't get lazy. Thing number two is most people who've got businesses generally don't have products that aren't sustainable. They come out with a product, but a product isn't a business. Just because you've got an ebook or some products, the lifetime value of a lot of internet marketing products. Eric, how many products do you think that are still selling 5-10 years ago that are still selling today? Can you think of any?
In the internet marketing market, probably like less than 2 or 3%.
Very little. And then the ones that are sustainable are the ones who are selling the pickaxes. So you've got Tom, who owns AWeber. Clay Collins, he runs Lead Pages. Those are products. Those are services I still see will continue to be sold because they continue to innovate. But, information products, there are very few. I once asked Frank Kern this, and I said, how many information product membership sites in the internet marketing space are still around? And I think maybe I could just think of a handful on there. It's very difficult to sustain in that market. And the other thing, too, is the internet marketing space is very small in comparison to, compare that to, and I said this before, compare that to how many people want to make money, extra money, outside of their job. There's tons. It's a lot more. And also a lot of people in the internet marketing space, they would continue to sell to that group. And that group of, 25, 30,000, maybe let's call it 100,000 people on there. And then you've got joint ventures, and you've got people selling to their list. And as you know, it's all ancestors, and everybody's selling the same stuff on there. So it's very difficult to have a sustainable business unless you're not actively generating leads, like you say, going out to affiliate, going out to the space. I've got a good friend who's in the marketing space, and he doesn't even sell to that industry anymore. But what he does sell is he's as well in the music industry. But he said he packages it for musicians to make a little bit extra money outside, and then now he's got a whole new group that he could be selling to. While everybody else is selling to that internet marketing space on there, he's going out and saying, hey, you're a musician. You may not, have you heard it? Here are some ways that you can generate some income in between your music gigs on there. So now imagine how big your potential opportunity is by going outside this, outside of those industries. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a great point, man. Like I'll relate it to like just coaching people over the years, So like I've coached a lot of one-on-one people, and they all wanted to be in the internet marketing market. That's the niche market they wanted to go after, is the market that they're really interested in and passionate about, which is understandable. But it's like, if I walked down my street in my neighborhood and started knocking on doors, And they ask each person, I'll knock on the door, and then, some soccer mom would open the door, and I'd say, hey, would you like to learn how to make money on the internet marketing? I'd say probably 10% of them would say, okay, what's that all about? Most of them would be like, get off of my lawn and don't come back again, right? Well, they're not interested. However, if I started going and knocking on doors and said, hey, you want to learn how to lose some weight, following this really nice formula that doesn't require vigorous exercise, I mean, probably 90% of the block or the neighborhood would be interested in that. Or if we just took the city of Austin, where I live, I mean, probably, 60% of the whole city is interested in weight loss, where how many of them would be interested in, the Warrior Forum or internet marketing, it would be like a very small percentage, and I'd know those people. But, and that's just Austin. There's probably 200, 300, 400,000 people in Austin that will spend money on weight loss products this year or this month, where they're not going to do that with internet marketing products. And then that's just Austin. That doesn't count the rest of the world. So there's billions of people that want to lose weight. But there's billions of people who want to learn how to make money, too. So you're right. I think that's a great way to put it. So when you take a small market like internet marketing, and then you have everyone, it's like a bunch of big fish swimming in a very small pond, and then also a bunch of little fish also swimming in that same pond. I mean, there's hardly any room for water because everyone's trying to sell to each other. That makes it very difficult to sustain a business. That's an excellent point.
Right, but imagine, let's say you're a teacher, and you've got a list of teachers that you can communicate, and you say, here's some things that maybe you can add some revenue through your school, and just here's my affiliate link, and we'll teach you about affiliate marketing. And here's an extra way of doing that. While, instead of selling to the same people everybody else is selling, and that's where I see a lot of people where they struggle is they didn't go past that. They didn't get past selling out to internet marketing. And sometimes you just have to anticipate, and I'm not saying that, I do everything right, which certainly isn't true, but you kind of anticipate, where, where's the market going to? And, one of the, and another, and I guess for number 3 is, if your whole business is devoted to, like, what's going on with Google or, let's say, Amazon or Facebook, you need to anticipate switching over and diversifying. So I've got friends who got, they've had whole 5-figure month, healthy 5-figure month businesses that got completely shut down because they got slapped by Google. And, that'll, if your whole business is based upon, one search engine, that is a very scary proposition. And you need to start, if your whole business is in SEO, spend, 20% of your time doing pay-per-click or learning about Facebook marketing. Just diversifying. You don't want to have your entire business based upon a search engine or some form of traffic. That's when you need to start educating yourself about different types of traffic, different types of products. So in case the inevitable does happen, you're not caught up with it. I can imagine probably, Eric, a few folks that you talk to base their business just on the whims of Google, huh?
Yeah, it's the whole 80-20 rule. So a lot of people get, and there's a lot of people that were there that have offline clients or small businesses as clients. And most of the revenue are coming from, 20% of their clients. So it's like 80% of your revenue is coming from 20% of your clients. If you lose a couple of those 20%ers, and then there goes half your income, and then you got to scramble to get that replaced. So that's one of those big forks in the road that, I came to, didn't diversify, lost my butt, and then had to turn around and figure out how to get back on my feet again. And then by the time I did, I was cooking along, and then came to that fork in the road again. And this time I took the other direction, which was to diversify a little bit, and was so glad that I did. So that's one of those business lessons that comes along that, sometimes it takes going through the data a couple times before you realize, the next time I start doing well, I need to diversify a little bit so I don't have all my eggs in one basket and I can withstand the next crisis.
So I don't want this to be a negative call. I think a lot of lessons can be learned from this. I think a lot of times too, crisis can really spur on your own entrepreneurial juices, so to speak. Most of my times when I think I've had the biggest gains in my business is because I've had to react to some type of crisis, whether it be financial or personal, on there, and it really pushes me to the next level. You're going to say something?
No, that's exactly right. I mean, it's like the universe or God or something forces us to grow, and so if we get a little stagnant, then and some challenge comes along, then it kind of forces us to get on our toes, get on our horse, and try to figure out a solution. And then the creative juices start flowing, and something happens, and all of a sudden you have the biggest breakthrough in your business you've ever had. So it's all connected, I'm not trying to be negative. I'm trying to help people understand that, if that comes along, that's part of business. Those forks in the road make you better and bigger and stronger, to have more longevity in business, to have more fun, and to be more intelligent about what you're doing in business, so you can make the proper decisions and take the proper actions to have more abundance. But yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, when something happens, there's always an opportunity in there, and sometimes it's the simplest little idea or tweak that ends up being a blockbuster breakthrough that changes everything.
I think a lot of times too is, and going back to what you said previously, is you find out something's working, and a lot of times we just get away from that. Go back to what was working before. I've gone into optimizing some websites and doing this, looking at this new traffic source, and then come back from a conference, and then I want to implement the latest and greatest into my website, and then it gets really, really frustrating. And then sometimes it's like, you know what? Why not just go back to what I was doing before on there? I was making a lot more money. It was a lot more simpler, and I understand it a lot better. And oftentimes, again, simple is just makes more money in the long run. I know you preach that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, man. Well, another great call. Thanks for joining us. Don't be a stranger here. Anything else you want to plug or promote?
What's that?
Anything you want to plug or promote? Anything going on?
I've just been focused on our web-van services. We have that cooking pretty good. I'm diversified a little bit on some other things on the side with some small businesses and some niche stuff. But right now, I'd say 80%, 90% of my focus is on webvans.com, and it's doing great. It's really changing some lives, because people they spend years in trying to make money online, and a lot of times they never even get to where they have an active squeeze page up online that's building a list for them. And yet we're helping people set up entire sales funnels, and it's like seeing their name in lights to have their own full-blown business up and online with buy now buttons. So helping people with providing them these services has been a lot of fun, because they're seeing results where they hadn't seen those results for years of being in this business. So really, when it comes down to it, the way to make money in this business is to sell and to implement. Just implement things, because a lot of people are in the business for a long time, and they learn a lot, but they don't implement. So it's the sooner people start implementing and executing and making things happen, getting things done, and then start selling whatever it is that they got done, their sales funnel or their products or their squeeze pages, then that's when they start getting results. So that's what I've been focused on. And other than having a baby, we had a baby, and that's been a lot of work for me, because before my wife was the one that would get my son ready for school and take him to school and pick him up and take him to karate and all those things, and I'm like running around trying to learn all of these Mr. Mom type of things I wasn't doing before. So I have a whole new appreciation for that arena. But man, it's been taxing on me. It didn't help to go out of town for an event too. So I got back, and my wife's like, "I got a whole list of stuff for you to take care of." So I feel like I added another business or job to my my life. So I'm learning how to balance. And you know, it's interesting. I'm like, hey, can't he like ride the bus home from school? Because if he rode the bus and you know they drop him off right over there, that'll save me a whole hour. You know, so now I'm like, you know, being a lot more disciplined with my time and figuring out things that we can do. And also with our son, when he was born, we had a full-time like housekeeper, you know, and we don't have her now. And Vanessa's been waiting for her because she's been away and had some medical stuff she's dealing with. And so my wife is like, well, I'm just holding off for her so when she's done, you know, she can come back because she's been with us since before Julian was born. So that's a big difference too. We don't have any help, and there's no family really here in Austin to like go stuff the kids at. You know, like, hey, take care of the kids for a little while. We're gonna go to the movies and chill out. You know, so it's been a little hectic over here, but we're adapting.
Okay, do you want to shout out for a housekeeper then on the podcast?
If you're a housekeeper in the Lakeway area, we pay well, and we're pretty cool people, and need some help. No, it's been really good for me, man, because I'm seeing my kids from a different angle because I'm getting them dressed and I'm doing all the stuff, and I'm so glad that happened too, because it's given me a better relationship with my son than we had before. Before, I thought we had the greatest relationship in the world, but now I'm like, oh, now we're really tight. So I'm really glad that this has happened. Having another baby has really created a whole new dynamic for our family, and it's just awesome. So we're living it up over here.
Okay, awesome. Your kids are still young, but let me just tell you, when I drop my kids off for school, you know, we don't use a school bus. That we have a lot of personal time that you know, I really cherish. So don't outsource it to the school bus just yet. Once we get talking and walking all that. All right, guys.
Well, I wanted to just do it for a couple of months, so you know we get the baby to the sleep stage. You know, where the baby's sleeping.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Sleeping well.
Awesome. Well,
she's a good baby.
I'm sure she is. Okay, thanks again a lot, guys. Thanks for joining us on another edition of the Internet Income Show. If you like us on Facebook. You know, make great comments, put it on iTunes. We really appreciate it. It gives us the drive to continue making more great content, for free content for you guys to share and benefit and profit from your own business. For Eric Olivier, this is Dr. Mike, and always keep moving forward.
You just listened to the Internet Income Show with Dr. Mike and Eric. Now, get to work.